It all really began in 1988 when Robert Tappan Morris, now a professor at MIT, released the Morris worm to see how big the internet is, but also in turn became the first person to be convicted under the U.S. Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. Cyber attacks, no matter what angle we look at them or what lens we use, are now one of the biggest threats to the U.S. infrastructure to date. James Clapper, the Director of National Intelligence, identified cyber attacks as the greatest threat to U.S. national security. The Pentagon alone experiences up to 10 million attempts of cyber intrusion a day, and more than 2/5 of the cyber incidents reported by federal agencies last year were attempts to access U.S. networks to propagate malicious code. Infrastructure that is critical to sustain the U.S., such as physical and virtual assets, systems, and networks that are vital to keeping national and economic security, health, and safety, are all vulnerable to cyber attacks put into place by foreign governments, criminals, and even just lone wolves. Our question for our video is this: what would happen if someone successfully infiltrated the United States with a cyber attack?
Cyber attacks have been around for almost as long as we've had functional desktop computers. The first recorded example of cyber attack was basically an accident. In 1988, Robert Tappan Morris created a worm that replicated itself rapidly in an attempt to gauge how big the internet is. This worm replicated rapidly across the United States and created a huge problem. The worm slowed down computers almost to an unusable point. As a result, Mr. Morris was the first person to be convicted under the U.S.'s Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. The history of cyber attack only gets more disturbing from there. The United States experiences attacks on a daily basis and has released reports stating that the problems that were occurring. And the United States is not the only country that has experienced problems with cyber attacks. China, Russia, and multiple countries across the Middle East have experienced attacks that have put their infrastructure at risk. For example, in October of 2010, a complex piece of malware was discovered in Iran. The goal of the malware was designed to disrupt the nuclear facilities within Iran, which could have had huge consequences. This is just an example of how the infrastructure can be harmed. A more common crime is to hack financial institutions to steal large amounts of information in a short amount of time, and this poses a different type of threat to countries, especially the United States.
The initial steps to analyzing the effects of a cyber attack on the government and the content of government and people's information revealed are examining costs of previous attacks, such as the case with Sony. Though these hacks did not reveal potentially disastrous information about our government, we can see how the relationships between corporations and their employees and customers were damaged. Then we can look into more the potentially devastating information that could be revealed by hackers about our country and its people, and how that would affect the world's perception of the U.S., expose weaknesses to terrorists, and destroy the infrastructure through attacks such as using malicious software. Employee and customer information, such as private email containing embarrassing or hurtful context, social security numbers, and bank account information, was revealed in the Sony hack. The consequences of this information being leaked was its effect on the relationships between Sony's employees, customers' trust concerns, identities being revealed, and millions of dollars being lost. If an attack similar to this were to occur within a U.S. government agency, personally identifiable information would be stolen, potentially for the entire population, not just people with information stored by Sony. The most dangerous information revealed in a hack would be military plans, weapon systems, foreign government information relations, vulnerabilities within systems, organizations, and future plans, nuclear weapons information, and any information posing a severe threat to national security.
For the U.S. to go about fixing the information loss, they would have to collaborate with someone like Google. In an article written by the government, it talks about how in order to stop a cyber attack, a collaboration with another country would be helpful. In 2013, the U.S. worked with Great Britain to try and see where they were making mistakes in terms of securing their information. In this same sense, for safety precautions, the U.S. should try to work with someone like Google or some other big technological company to try and save their information if someone were to attack them. Now, this could be costly, assuming that Google wouldn't just give them help for free. Google is a large company who knows what they're doing and they know how much their services are worth. But in order for the U.S. to be safe from cyber attacks, a collaboration is needed.
Although it's been said before about the enormous amount of harmful internet traffic that the U.S. is bombarded with on a daily basis, 10 million attacks a day is no joke. With statistics like this, we can't possibly disregard the fact that cyber attacks are a very real and dangerous topic in today's day and age. Cyber attacks have become so sophisticated and complicated that a large portion of the U.S. defense system is devoted to halting these attacks before they can do any real damage. Since cyber attacks are constantly growing in numbers and in their complexity, policies are constantly being written up and enforced, but they are being created at a very slow pace in comparison to the growth of cyber warfare. Foreign entities that constantly attack the United States understand what to attack or disable. Most attacks are large scale, and if successful, wouldn't attack Verizon or Google, but rather parts of the energy industry. A successful attack could be something as simple as cutting off your water, hindering the gas and oil industries, and making sure you can't get any of the necessary goods you need at a grocery store by halting transportation. These are just minor examples, but the purpose is to exemplify just how real these attacks are and express the incredibly vast numbers of attacks the U.S. encounters every single day.